Hi, I'm Mack, and welcome back to Mack and Jack's Thack. Today we will be discussing OMF number 9.
Alright, we're going to start off in chapter 11 here, where it talks about Miss Peacher. And Miss Peacher is another school teacher, and she is madly in love with Bradley Headstone, and Bradley Headstone doesn't know it. So it's kind of awkward because she's always talking about him, and she daydreams about him during class, even though she's the teacher. So we get some funny stories in chapter 11 about her. Another thing that happens in chapter 11 is that at the end of class, Bradley Headstone comes to visit Lizzie. And so you have Lizzie and Bradley Headstone and Jenny Wren in the same room. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? It's a little awkward, isn't it?
To say the least of that. Yeah. It's, let's just say he doesn't know how to talk.
Yeah.
And he's not a people person.
No.
Okay, he's just socially awkward. And he doesn't know how to tell her he's into her very well. But she can tell what he's saying anyways, and she's like,
Yeah, it's kind of almost like she feels bad for him, And Jenny Wren's like, should I go? And, she's no, please stay.
We're
please stay.
good, just stay here.
Yeah, so
yeah.
There's, let me just read this paragraph to you because it's very, it just describes perfectly of how Bradley Headstone is not the lady's charmer. Alright, I should like to ask you, said Bradley Headstone, grinding his words slowly out as though they came from a rusty mill. I should like to ask you, if I may, without offense, whether you would have objected. No, rather I should like to say, if I may, without offense, that I wish I had the opportunity of coming here with your brother and devoting my poor abilities and experience to your service. And it's like, okay.
And
Thank you.
It's
whatever.
kind of funny because he's like using her brother as an excuse to visit her.
Yeah,
he's like, oh yeah, I need to talk to you about stuff about your brother.
On a side note,
by the way, you and me, is there, where are we at?
Yeah. Oh, and I thought it was interesting, actually. It says, it makes a lot of comments about Jenny Wren and her dolls. On page 339, it says, maybe a third paragraph down, it says, there might have been no meaning in it, but the little dressmaker here removed one of her supporting hands from her chin and amusingly turned the Honorable Mrs. T, a.k.a. Mrs. Truth, with her face to the company. When Dickens says there might have been no meaning in it, obviously, of course there's meaning in it, He's kind of giving us
like a joke. Well, there might have been
just red alert. But, so, Mrs. Truth, we don't know if he's just, super honest and, this is, almost innocent with Mr. Bradley Headstone. We don't know, but we know Mrs. Truth has something to do with truth, obviously. I don't even know why I said that. Then after Mr. Headstone leaves, Jenny Wren and Lizzie are talking about Mr. Eugene Rayburn, because Lizzie's into him.
Yeah, she's digging on him, and she knows that he was stalking her that one night.
Right.
And he totally thought he was fine. He was like,
she doesn't even notice. Yeah.
But she did, and she's into him, so it's going to be interesting, because he doesn't want to marry her or do anything.
Right.
Even though he's, into her.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be
Well, because Lizzie is also at a much different social class.
Right.
She's, really low, and Mr. Eugene Rayburn is obviously, this really high lawyer, so it's kind of weird on, the social class thing. It's never going to work out for her. She's kind of, dreaming about the riches, but...
Yeah. She might.
It could happen, but Jenny Wren doesn't think so. She's, trying to say, maybe
Just,
it might happen, being a good friend.
Don't be quite so hopeful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's like, yeah, so what do you think about Eugene?
Yeah, it's almost like she's taunting Lizzie, it's not very kind, but...
Chapter 12, we get introduced to Rogue Rider Hood's little child.
Yeah, and...
Actually, she's a young woman. But, yeah.
Before you go into that, I was just going to say that if you think about a man who fishes out dead bodies of a river and a daughter, doppelganger already with Gaffer and Lizzie.
Boom.
We have Rider Hood and Pleasant Riderhood or whatever.
So hopefully Pleasant and Lizzie don't, meet. Otherwise,
one of them's gonna die. So why don't you tell us more about Pleasant?
Yeah, it's interesting because she's, like her name, she's actually kind of pleasant, even though she kind of is a skinflint and she kind of gyps off the sailors that come into her place.
Now, what does she do for an occupation?
She's a boarding person and
sailors
and a pawnbroker.
Got it.
And so this mysterious guy comes in. He looks like a sailor. She can totally spot that kind of stuff. Like, except his hands.
Yeah, talks about his hands. And
they're smooth, and she's like, "Oh, that's different." But everything else, he looks like a sailor. So
yeah,
probably a sailor.
It's money to me. So
and so she's like trying to take advantage of him, and he's like, "Hey, look, I know your tricks, so don't try them on me.
Yeah,
let's get down
totally
to business."
Calls her out, yeah. So he says the sailor says that I'm waiting for your dad. I know he's not here, and so she's kind of taken aback. So Riderhood comes back, and they have a nice little confrontation because Riderhood recognizes the knife that this guy has and the coat, and he says, "Oh, I recognize that coat and that knife. They belong to."
I can't remember his name.
I'll find it for you.
All right, but it's really interesting because he identifies the man who owns the knife and the coat, and so the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you know this guy," and he's like, "He might be dead." George Radfoot, that's right. And so the guy's like, "Is he dead?" He's like, "Maybe." And he's like, "Did you kill him?" "I don't know."
Yeah, it's almost like he's wants money or something to have the guy pay him off to say I killed him. But we don't know.
And so he's trying to get Riderhood to say, are you gonna say that Gaffer didn't do it, because you and I both know that he didn't. Right. And so
he's trying to get kind of like a confession out of him so he can use it against him. But this guy obviously has ulterior motives. But Riderhood's trying to, I don't know. It's like two villains, and they're both trying to figure out. They're playing a game of just intellectual,
like chess.
Chess, yeah, it's a great way to describe it. And so that's anything else in chapter 12.
No.
Oh, I have one more thing
that just came.
That just came in my mind when Pleasant. We figure out that Riderhood is not very nice to his daughter. Contrasting that of Gaffer, who loves his daughter very much, Lizzie. Now, when Riderhood talks to his daughter, he's like, "Stop!" Was it parrot?
Stop parroting?
Yeah, it's something like that. Pole parroting, which is another way of talking. So he's like, please, just shut up. And stop pole parroting.
And she kind of developed her hate for sailors from him. So it's kind of like it's not really her fault that she does that. It's just because he kind of raised her that way.
Yeah. I think that's it in chapter 12. They part their ways, and we're kind of left in mystery with Riderhood
and the dude,
and the sailor,
Captain. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all we get from his name is Captain, right? So we know he's high up in the ranks.
Well, we don't because Riderhood calls him Captain because he's like.
I guess it could be a nickname. I guess
because he's like, well, you wouldn't object to me calling you Captain, would he? And so the guy's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah. And then we find out who the guy is.
Yeah. Now, this is chapter 13. Now, this is the end of... this is a break in the monthly numbers. Kind of like, we'll say it's the season finale. Okay. I think that's a great way to describe this. The season finale. So, for 6 months or so, Dickens wouldn't put out another issue. So, he had to end on a big banger. Now, I didn't see this coming. Did you...
Yes and no.
Did you really? Wow.
Well,
I couldn't even guess.
I kind of started seeing it in chapter 12, but I had heard something about, John Harmon being not dead, so it, so I didn't really see it, but...
Oh, well, we're introduced to the story of John Harmon. Remember, John Harmon was the rich guy who died, and his son was going to inherit all the money, so he died.
Oh, right.
And John Harmon Jr., and he mysteriously... died, so they're trying to, this whole book, they're kind of trying to figure out who it is.
Except for...
But they don't really know. They don't have any ties. They thought it was Gaffer, then Gaffer died. So this is the whole mystery about John Harmon. Who is John Harmon Jr.? And he's dead, supposedly. But in this chapter, Jake, what happens?
We find out he is not dead, and then it's actually what was his name?
Roke
again?
Smith, the guy who's been the secretary for the Boffins, who is so well read, who knows everything about the house. I don't know why I didn't see it. Obviously, it's John Harmon Jr.
I kind of had some suspicions, but not really. It was kind of like, oh, that's weird. He knows that stuff. And
Yeah, wow. So I didn't really see it coming. I should have. Dickens gave me the clues, but we also see him in this chapter kind of flirting it up with Bella.
Kind of like he's like, "What's up, girl?" And she's like, "Mm-mm."
Yeah, let's see.
She's not having any of it. She thinks that he's like taking advantage of being the secretary to the Boffins to like, go.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
Yeah, she
doesn't know that it's him.
It's interesting because he's like, if I hadn't died and I had married her, she would have thought that we had been forced into this. But at the same time, we would have still been together, and so he's
right because he's madly in love with her. On page 370 of the Penguin edition, about 4 paragraphs down, it says Bella's talking to. It says that he's Mr. Rokesmith at this point, and he says, "I appeal to you, sir," proceeded Bella with an increasing spirit, not to pursue me. I appeal to you not to take advantage of your position in this house as a secretary, to make my position in it distressing and disagreeable, because remember, she's living with the Boffins, so she was like, let's just not make this awkward, okay? I appeal to you to discontinue your habit of making your misplaced attentions as plain to Mrs. Boffin as me. So she's like, stop trying to pretend that you have stuff to discuss with me, because we both know that you're just trying to talk to me. So, Mr. Rokesmith, a.k.a. John Harmon Jr., is trying, but Bella's kind of shutting him down, and it's funny because she doesn't know that he's the real guy.
Yeah,
it's all the money! Dickens does a great job of making this just a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And at the end of chapter 13, I thought this was really interesting. The last words are, let me give you background, sorry. Rokesmith, John Harmon Jr., is covering up John Harmon Jr.'s, basically his own grave.
Like his,
his alias?
It's hard to...
He's covering up his own grave because he doesn't want people to open it and be like, oh, there's nothing.
Well, and it's like kind of a metaphorical burial. Like he's kind of just burying his past. Right.
He's the last 7 words are cover him, crush him, keep him down. And I wrote here in my notes, it's for Bella probably, I don't want to become this John Harmon Jr. because that'll be something different to Bella, and I want to try win Bella on my own terms. So
and he also doesn't want to get killed because the people who already killed
Gaffer,
George Lightfoot and Gaffer.
Yeah.
If they find out he's back alive,
he knows
this is a fresh start for him. So
Dickens does a fantastic job of keeping us on our toes and ending with a slam bang finish. That is. You have anything else to add? Monthly number 9 is finished, and when we come back for our next edition, we get to discuss chapter 14 and the rest of the book. We're about halfway through, so great job, Mack.
Great job, Jack.
and this is Jack. I'm Jack.
And I'm Mack.
This is Jack and Max.
Thack.
Thack. Have a great one, guys. See you next time.